Welcome to For You Radio, where the gospel's for the believer and the unbeliever alike. I'm Craig Donofrio, pastor of Redeemer Lutheran Church in Wilmer, Minnesota.
And I am Troy Neujahr, pastor of St. Peter's Lutheran Church, Shaker Heights, OHIO.
Yes. Hey, a little delayed start there. Music went a little extra long as it is the official opening day of allergy season. So just sneezing and blowing my schnoz and all sorts of stuff.
There's no pollen in Minnesota.
Oh, no, it's worse here than Cleveland, actually, pollen-wise. I'm learning. Anyway, we would love to have you come worship with us at either or both of our churches. If you're in the Wilmer area, come on out to Redeemer. And if you find yourself in Cleveland, go to Shaker Heights. Look up St. Peter's Lutheran Church. And there will be a bearded gnome of a man who will tell you about Jesus.
Wow.
Yes. The Lutheran lawn gnome known as Troy Neujahr.
Thank you.
We are proud to be part of 1517.org broadcast and podcast network. Go check out 1517.org. Wonderful stuff there for you, for your family. You will hear about Jesus no matter what, I promise. Troy, if people want to email us, where would they address their emails to?
Well, they shall and have been and ever shall be able to email us at foryouradio@1517.org. Hey, we like emails, so please shoot us one. We'd more than happy to have a conversation, or occasionally we've even developed a whole episode off of an email just to answer some questions. So it's always good to hear from you.
These things happen from time to time. Very good. I think we're ready to jump back into the book of Judges. And we turn to chapter 4 as we talk about Deborah and Barak and Jael and a whole cast of characters.
Sisera. And before we do all that, of course, standard book of Judges, Bible study warning.
Yep.
PG-13 at best.
At best, yes.
Best.
There will be violence in this episode.
Yes. There's
gratuitous
all sorts of stuff.
Gore. Yes.
Oh my. And you know what? I also want to say this though too. One thing we've kind of been repeating so far in Judges is that God uses, let's say, less than desirable people and less than desirable circumstances to protect and deliver his people.
Yeah.
Which is especially interesting since, he's delivering them from his own wrath, from their own sin. But in this list of less than desirable people, the story of Deborah and Barak, this is no exception. There's some interesting stuff here that should really give us kind of pause to think, hey, is Deborah a hero? Is Jael a hero? We know Barak's not, but are these people worthy of that title of biblical hero? And I'm going to go out on a limb already and say, I don't think so.
It's very interesting as you look through the Bible, the cast of characters, all of the heroes of the Bible and the apostles and so forth, all very flawed and broken individuals who would not normally be of the character that you would assume a great man of God or woman of God would be. And yet all of them except for one is very flawed. And that one, of course, would be Jesus. He's the only one who's not flawed. And of course, no one really wants to follow him because, well, he says all sorts of insane things that people can't quite wrap their heads around.
Well, how about take up your cross and follow me? Yeah, that's
that's
right
not
there.
That's not real user friendly, right? No promises of health and wealth and all that. Just
quite the explicit opposite.
Yeah. So anyway, back to this. We have some broken people here, and God says, I can work with that. And so he does.
Mm-hmm.
So shall we jump into chapter 4? Would you read?
Okay, chapter 4. Set the stage with verses 1 through 3. And the people of Israel again did what was evil in the sight of the Lord after Ehud died. And the Lord sold them into the hand of Jabin, king of Canaan, who reigned in Hazor, or maybe Hazor. The commander of his army was Sisera, who lived in Harosheth Haggayim. Then the people of Israel cried out to the Lord for help, and for he had 900 chariots of iron, and he oppressed the people of Israel cruelly for 20 years. All right, so before we go too much further, there's the cycle. We've seen it before. We're going to see it again. People sin, they do evil. Lord gives them over to the hand of their enemies, and then they say, "Oh, that's right. We should repent." And they cry out to the Lord for help. And what happens next?
Right. We got that cycle of stupid that we've talked about before, right? Where the Israelites, we worship Yahweh. Yay. Oh, look, bright, shiny God. And then they go and worship that God. And then they're like, oh, no, how did we become slaves and oppressed? And, well, God says, well, because you went and worshiped other gods, you forsook me and you get what you want. And then they say, well, that's not working out. Lord, please forgive us. Okay, here's a judge to deliver you.
Yeah. By the way, here's the answer to the question. Why do bad things happen to good people?
They don't. No one is good except for Christ.
Except for Jesus. Right. Yeah. Here, bad things happen to sinners here, especially here. So, yeah.
Yeah. So really the bad thing that happened to the good person was for your benefit, if you want to think about it that way.
There you go.
Verse 2, I didn't notice this until you were just reading. They lived in Harosheth Hagoyim. I don't know what Harosheth means, but Hagoyim, the Goyim, the Gentiles, right? I didn't catch that.
Nice
Did you catch that?
Good catch. Thank you.
Yeah. So Harosheth, which is where the Gentiles live, apparently.
Yeah.
There.
Harosheth of the Gentiles. There we go.
Right.
So, thus emphasizing, by the way, that these are the enemies of Israel, the enemies of the people of God.
Right.
Yes.
So all the Gentiles.
Okay. So verse 4.
Yeah.
Now Deborah, a prophetess, the wife of Lapidoth, was judging Israel at that time. She's a sit under the palm of Deborah between Ramah and Bethel in the hill country of Ephraim, and the people of Israel came up to her for judgment. She sent and summoned Barak, the son of Abinoam, from Kadesh Naphtali, and said to him, "Has not the Lord, the God of Israel, commanded you, go gather your men at Mount Tabor, taking 10,000 for the people of Naphtali and the people of Zebulun, and I will draw out Sisera, the general of Jabin's army, to meet you by the river of Kishon with his chariots and his troops, and I will give him into your hand?" Barak said to her, "If you'll go with me, I'll go, but if you will not go with me, I will not go." And she said, "I will surely go with you. Nevertheless, the road on which you are going will not lead to your glory, for the Lord will sell Sisera into the hand of a woman." Then Deborah arose and went with Barak to Kadesh. I'm going to pause there because there is a lot of stuff loaded up there already.
Yeah.
Here's a thing I want to drive home. Pun. Speaking of the end of the story, I want to drive this point home.
You're only 10 verses early on this.
I know, but it's funny to me. Deborah, now she's a prophetess, so
Right.
she speaks forth the word of the Lord. But, look at the way she's described. She was judging Israel at that time. We do not hear how the Lord rose up Deborah. He did not raise her up to be judge. She seems to be kind of just occupying this office for lack of anyone else willing to do it. Here's an example of the priestly class. All the priests of God have utterly forsaken their duty, and the people have no choice except to go up to Deborah, the prophetess, to hear the word of the Lord. This is not the way it should be. This is not the way it should be. Now, is Deborah evil for that? No, I don't think so. But also, I don't think she should be the one that people are seeking out for the word of God. They should be seeking out the priests. Interesting. Then the next. By the way, we just like the fact that she's Deborah sitting under the palm of Deborah.
Yep. There's a little plaque on the palm that says, "I belong to Deborah."
Exactly. There you go. Right. Yeah. Yeah. The Craig you're sitting on, the chair you're sitting on is the chair of Craig. Right.
The chair of Craig.
There we go.
Craig is resting upon the chair of Craig. Yes.
I like the fact that she summons Barak. So somehow, she's got authority to do this. And of course, it's the authority of the word of the Lord, which we see next. But she summons Barak to him and says, "Hey, this is what God has said.
Yeah.
I will deliver Sisera into your hand." And Barak says,
I love Barak. Okay, I'll go, I guess, if you come with me.
right,
The guy's total. I mean, it just seems like he's a chicken. Maybe I'm misreading it, but that's always the vibe that I've gotten from Barak.
Well, yeah, okay. I think there's a couple commentaries I've read that were a little bit nicer to him. Like he needs the prophetic enthusiasm, to kind of get the men stirred up, right? See, we've got a prophet of God with us.
God is on our side. See, we've
got Deborah.
prophetess.
Yeah. But it does read a lot like that, though. Will you hold my hand and take me? Yeah. So Barak's problem is, A, he doesn't trust himself. Actually, probably A, he doesn't trust the word of the Lord. He doesn't trust the promise of God.
Right.
And B, he doesn't trust himself. And C, he needs this prophetess, Deborah, to kind of give him the oomph to summon everybody to fight this battle.
Yeah, legitimacy, right?
Yeah.
It's kind of interesting that in the military, I know a lot of times the chaplain shows up and the troops are, they kind of rally because God is on our side. The chaplain's here. I know I saw that a little bit in police chaplaincy that, God must be on our side because the chaplain's here. So we've got the holy man, as it were. I could see this, with Barak and Deborah and the soldiers, that we've got the prophetess here. So we know that we're not just doing our thing, but we're doing something that is right before God. So you could look at it that way, I guess.
To that end, later on, I think, oh boy, I can't even tell you exactly where, but the people of Israel take the Ark of the Covenant. And they just have this idea that, well, if we put the Ark out in front of us, we're gonna defeat all the enemies that come to us because that's what the Ark does. And they start trusting in something other than God himself and his hand of deliverance. So Barak has had the clear, direct word of God, and he should not need anything else. And yet he says, and you got to understand this in the context of the time, he says this to a woman, will you go with me?
Now that's really weak right there, because there's a old Jewish prayer that says, God, thank you for not making me a Gentile or a woman.
A woman, right.
Yeah. And so, this is a day and age when women were not highly respected as a whole. And yet here's a woman doing the man's job of being the judge. And we always, hear on this that it's because there were no men to be found to do it. And so Deborah's doing this thing, which is to be to the shame of the Israelite men. And yet they seem to be okay with this. And then you got Barak and his behavior here, which seems also pretty weak.
So we've got a lot of stuff kind of stirring up underneath the surface of this story that I think the author of Judges would have us understand.
Right.
Now, we should understand today, we're not being anti-female. We're not misogynist. That's the word I'm looking for. We're not being misogynist. But again, to be really perfectly clear, Deborah is called by God to be a prophetess and nothing else.
Right.
Nothing else in the text gives us any indication that she's called to do something else. So now,
no, she is not doing the priestly work, right? She is not offering sacrifice and the prayers on behalf of the people.
No, apparently not. Nope.
No.
So not. So neither is she usurping another office.
No, right.
But she's also not been called to these other things. But by the way, then, really interesting to kind of tie all that together and look at Deborah's own viewpoint. When Barak says, well, if you go with me, I'll go. And she says, okay, I'll go. But you're not going to get any battle glory out of this because now the Lord will sell Sisera into the hand of a woman.
Right.
As though, and I believe that is a prophetic utterance right there because of what we see happens later.
Sure enough.
And so even the Lord himself has a bit of implied rebuke of God to Barak. Yeah.
Yes.
So there the stage is set, and again, I think that's exactly the way the author of Judges would have us understand it. That this is a less than ideal situation. And what happens next?
Well, Then Deborah arose and went with Barak to Kadesh, and Barak called out Zebulun and Naphtali to Kadesh, and 10,000 men went up at his heels, and Deborah went up with him. Now, Heber the Kenite had separated from the Kenites the descendants of Hobab, the father-in-law of Moses, and had pitched his tent as far away as the oak of Zananim, which is near Kadesh. Of course, all these names, right? When Sisera was told that Barak, the son of Abinoam, had gone up to Mount Tabor, Sisera called out his chariots, 900 chariots of iron, and all the men who were with him from Harosheth Hagoyim to the river of Kishon. And Deborah said to Barak, "Up, for this is the day in which the Lord has given Sisera into your hand. Does not the Lord go out before you?" So Barak went down from Mount Tabor with 10,000 men following him, and the Lord routed Sisera and all his chariots and all his army before Barak by the edge of the sword. And Sisera got down from his chariot and fled away on foot. And Barak pursued the chariots and the army to Hasheroth Hagoyim, and all the army of Sisera fell by the edge of the sword. Not a man was left.
All right.
So shall we stop there?
Yeah, let's pause there really quick.
There's a lot, yeah.
So, one, again, now here we do see the Lord's explicit hand at work, right? Verse 15, the Lord routed Sisera and all his chariots, right?
Right.
And even in that prophetic utterance again of Deborah, Barak, come on, now the Lord would have you go into battle. Does not the Lord go out before you? What a great word that is, right?
Huh.
And so Barak does seem to get things going here. And by the way, this is a pretty big battle, right?
Well, yeah, one of the things that I want to point out is 900 chariots of iron. I mean, that's a bunch of infantrymen going up against tanks, basically, right?
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, chariots were incredible war machines for their day. And you would often have, at least one guy with a bow and arrow and one guy with a spear on board. And so they just run circles around you and pick you off. It was not a good thing to go against chariots, especially 900. Especially, there's no mention of Barak having any chariots. So,
right,
they're feeling pretty outmanned at this point, but the Lord goes before them. And so he's the tank smasher.
They are completely outgunned. But exactly what you just said.
Yeah,
the
but
Lord.
We got the nuke.
The Lord does His work.
Right.
There is a miraculous and powerful hand of God at work right here.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
And still, we kind of know from before how this is going to end up.
Right. Yeah. Well, there's a promise there.
Yeah. So this is looking really good. Barak pursued the chariots and the army all the way, and then they all fell by the sword. Not a man was left. This looks like a total victory for Barak, and he's going to get all the glory.
It's interesting. It just dawned on me also when you said not a man was left, and this was part of the problem that the Israelites were facing, because God had told them to wipe out these people, don't leave a man behind, and they took it easy on them. And then they intermarried with them, and then the idolatry began, and it just kind of kept running. Here, they actually do what they're told. Not a man is left. And so they follow the word of Yahweh.
Good,
right?
Good, yeah.
Finally, yeah.
Let's roll here. So verse 17. But Sisera fled away on foot to the tent of Jael, the wife of Heber the Kenite. We met them in just a few verses ago. For there was peace between Jabin, the king of Hazor, and the house of Heber the Kenite. And Jael came out to meet Sisera and said to him, "Turn aside, my lord, turn aside to me. Do not be afraid." So he turned aside to her into the tent, and she covered him with a rug. And he said to her, "Please give me a little water to drink, for I'm thirsty." So she opened a skin of milk and gave him a drink and covered him. And he said to her, "Stand at the opening of the tent. If any man comes and asks you, 'Is anyone here?' say, 'No.'" But Jael, the wife of Heber, took a tent peg and took a hammer in her hand. And she went softly to him and drove the peg into his temple until it went down into the ground while he was lying fast asleep from weariness. So he died. You want to keep going?
Well, I just think you could do better on the dramatic reading of verse 21 there.
So he died.
But Jael, the wife of Heber, took a peg and took a hammer in her hand, and then she went softly to him and drove the peg into his temple until it went down into the ground while he was laying fast asleep from weariness. So he died.
Yep. So he died. So, okay. Now, one, ew, right? Yeah. But, again, but here,
I just love so he died.
Here again, I think we've got someone, this woman, Jael, we've got someone that we typically look at, oh, look, she's the hero of the story. But again, if we look at from the eyes of the author of Judges, there's some sketchy stuff going on here.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Not the least of which is that she is the wife of Heber the Kenite, who is the close ally of Jabin the king of Hazor, whom Sisera serves.
Sisera's boss.
Yes. So
yeah. And so why is Jael doing this exactly? I don't know as we ever know her reasoning behind all of this. It's kind of weird.
We don't. And yeah, it is very weird. And
wait, was her husband the descendant from Moses, his father-in-law, or something like that? Or
right? Yeah. Jethro.
So maybe there's connection to the Israelites there.
Either way,
and she feels a softness, perhaps.
But
yeah, there's not a whole lot to offer us. What entices Jael to do such a thing, except maybe she's just a psycho, which kind of makes it more interesting. I mean, this is good stuff that movies could be made of.
And you got to understand here too, this was not done in this day. A woman did not stand outside the tent and invite random guys into her tent.
Right.
No.
Yes.
No,
especially unchaperoned.
Unchaperoned, yes. Please come into my tent. I mean, okay, there's a point at which Sarah invites Abraham into her tent, and we know what happens there, right?
They're married.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So this is sketchy.
Yeah.
And
she's clearly enticing here.
Yeah, I would think so. There's a bit of seductiveness here. And even just the fact that she covers him with this rug, the Hebrew word there kind of indicates is like a really big, heavy rug.
Like a big skin.
Exactly.
Big.
So he's all snuggled down there. She gives him some milk. You guys ever have some nice warm milk? And what happens next, right?
Yeah, you go to sleep.
Yeah. And
Nice
so
and
with this
cozy.
big, heavy rug, he should be safe. He should be secure. He is in the house of his close ally.
And he tells her, if any men
Yes.
come, say, nope, no one here, go away. Basically sound the alarm for me, as it were. I'll sneak out the back door.
Well, yeah, and exactly. Yeah, I think there's that too. And yeah. Anyway.
Yeah.
So thank you. Yeah. So, and then.
So he died.
She utterly betrays him. It's wicked. It is.
Drives a big tent spike through his head.
I mean,
is there anything beyond this? I mean, should we move on to 22? Or?
Well, the only thing good about this is that the enemy of Israel dies. But neither the method by which he dies nor the person. I mean, Jael's not even an Israelite woman. Yeah, there's nothing good about this. It's all evil. It's all wicked. And the only good is the ultimate outcome. But
well, and the prophecy of Deborah is fulfilled, that he will be delivered by the hand of a woman.
Literally, in this case, yes.
Yeah.
As she drives the tent peg into the guy's brain. Holy cow. Anyway.
All right, verse 22. And behold, as Barak was pursuing Sisera, Jael went out to meet him and said to him, come, and I will show you the man whom you are seeking. So he went into her tent, and there lay Sisera dead with a tent peg in his temple. And he said unto her, I'm not cleaning that mess up. I added the extra there. the messy part.
And then finish it. So on that day, God subdued Jabin, the king of Canaan, before the people of Israel. And the hand of the people of Israel pressed harder and harder against Jabin, the king of Canaan, until they destroyed Jabin, king of Canaan.
The end.
So, verse 23, God subdued. So is God using all this evilness and wickedness and everything else? Yes.
He always does.
Is God using this less than perfect scenario? Yes. Can we uphold anyone in this story as being like really pure and clean and holy? No. But yet God uses these people and these situations to do what he does and save his people.
So I think that if we're going to look for a moral of the story, for lack of a better phrase, is God uses imperfect people for his holy causes. He takes simple, ordinary things and uses them for extraordinary purposes. Anyway, we're out of time once again. Until next week, may the Lord bless you and keep you in his grace to life everlasting. Go check out 1517.org. For You Radio is a 1517.org production. To listen to this radio broadcast and broadcasts like this one, I invite you to visit 1517.org. There you will also find many publications and free resources, including classes on Christian apologetics, church history, philosophy, and so much more. We are completely funded by generous donors like you. Would you consider making a generous gift to our work of spreading the gospel? Simply visit 1517.org.